First up, I think we all recognize Frank Ruona, the man. Come on up, Frank. Watch your step. Welcome. Thank you, Frank. Any seat you want. Filmmaker Christine Yoo. How you doing, man? Antwan Wiliams, the man behind the soundtrack, the sound on this thing. Tone, how you doing, brother? Tone Evans, the man narrating thing and keeping the traffic moving. Have a seat, folks. That's really quiet all of a sudden. That's so. Thank you all for what you did, what you brought to us, and the conversation that you're about to engage in. Thank you all for being here. As I said, I'm from UnCommon Law, and we are a nonprofit that provides trauma-informed counseling and legal representation to people serving life sentences. We only do that. We have a team of lawyers, therapists, counselors. We have, I think we're up to about 10 lawyers in my office now. And we have seen, those are the people who know when we only had one, and that was me. We've seen more than 300 of our life sentence clients come home at this point. And so it's always a pleasure to see folks who've been through this process you saw a little glimpse of here, see them come home and see the things that they do. And what they do sometimes just living a normal life, being in relationships with their families and their communities. They're not all stars, they're not all running marathons, and they don't need to be. That's not the standard. I gotta say I'm kind of mixed about this whole experience because I'm encouraged that you all are here to learn about this, to see the film, obviously learn about the folks inside. But I also, and I think from the film, you were able to get in touch with a little bit of the humanity of the folks and their experiences. I'm a little discouraged because San Quentin is right there. And many of you have come here and first glimpse of that humanity is through this film. I'm glad you've gotten that, but it shows what's possible when you actually connect with, get proximate to the folks inside, and do it with an open heart and an open mind. So I appreciate you coming here. I appreciate those who've gone inside and created these connections for folks. The other thing that I mentioned, we've had a lot of folks come home that we've worked with, and I have as I said, a team of lawyers. And this year, we may represent maybe 60 or 70 of people going to the parole board. In the meantime, there will be another 8,000 that are denied parole that we can't get to. In California alone. California has 35,000 people serving life sentences. 35,000. And you got a glimpse of the process that they have to deal with in order to come home. That scene with Markel sort of practicing, demonstrating what he might say to the parole board about why he's suitable for parole. There's a certain cruelty to it all. Because no matter how perfectly he may perform and practice, how well he may be, a prisoner, an inmate, a convict, the parole board is most likely to deny him parole each time he goes. They're only granting parole about 14% of the time that people are scheduled for hearings in California. And California has one of the most progressive systems in the country. So we got a long way to go. So I'm discouraged by that, but I'm encouraged by what you see and what happens when folks come home. You get the chance to connect with them, and I'm not going to delay any further. I have questions for all the folks here. We're going to have some time for you all to ask the questions you want to ask. I also have to, among the people, obviously partner with Christine and the filmmaker to be here to join in producing this event tonight. But we also, Serge Marin, Stand Up for Racial Justice, has helped join to bring this event to us. We appreciate that, appreciate their involvement, their support. So I want to start with you, Frank, and ask the question about, you touched on a little bit in the film, going into San Quentin, how different was it working with folks, meeting folks, encountering them from what you expected?
Well, I was working for Gelati Brothers in Marin County, and we did several projects at San Quentin. So I was familiar with the prison. I was inside a lot of times working on the projects, and I felt very comfortable in there. And when I went in and worked with the guys in the club, everybody was friendly, and I felt very comfortable in there.
Thank you, thank you. And Christine, you talked a little bit about your intentions when you started making this film. It didn't turn out the way you thought it would, mostly because you cut out my interview. I'm concerned about that, but we could talk about it another time. But I want to talk a little about just the storytelling, right? You may approach a project and have an idea of the story you want to tell, but there are, 4,000 people who live at San Quentin. They each have a powerful, individual, unique story. Like, what was it like to try to capture a handful of those and try to present them for an audience to see?
I mean, I couldn't stop shooting, actually. We shot maybe, all in all, probably like 100 days. One, we kept on getting access, and two, just every person that I met exactly had a very unique story to tell. The three main stories that you see here are just, a sliver, obviously, even a sliver of their own stories. We could only fit in 90 minutes, so just, this is just really the tip of the iceberg in terms of the type of narratives that people had to share, although I will say that there were commonalities that I felt that compelled me to do it really as a documentary instead of a motion picture. If we look at prison as, a place of quote-unquote society's failures, there were a lot of common threads that I did see. One, all the things that we can usually say that create success for people, access to education, family bonds, or at least access to mentorship. These are things that a lot of people in prison did not have the benefit of having access to. But yet the kind of amazing thing about San Quentin is that it does have all of these programs, of which the Running Club is one of them. But at the same time, the cruel irony of it is that many of the people there have more access to programs in there than they ever had on the streets.
Thank you. Sad commentary, right? So I want to turn to the artists among all of us here. First, I first saw this film in New York a few months ago, and I came out, first thing I said was, that soundtrack is crazy. I said, I knew the brother was talented, but I was blown away. I really, really appreciate it. Great job. But as an artist, what was it like for you trying to obviously tell your own story, but help people find their own ways of expression and help tell stories from inside?
Well, first I have to give as much credit as I can to Christine, because this was my first time scoring a film.
Wow.
And I actually,
Okay.
yeah.
So you have to
Chris-
retire at this point because I'm just,
I think we're going up from here. Christine had this vision, like even while I was inside, I think I might have still had like 2 or 3 years left on my sentence. And she was like, your music is great. Like, let's use your music. So I'm just like, I feel like supporting in any way possible will always make things better. So I've like throughout this entire process, I've been leaning on Christine, like whatever your vision is, like just like, like share that with me. And she's done that through like 1,000 different edits. But which is fine, right? Because it's like she's very specific. And with that came a lot of guidance. So the music that I was able to create and the way that I was able to like support the film and the stories I think was really amazing. But producing and making music inside of prison is different because it comes from a place where, for one, like everybody inside like has this need to be seen, right? Like, so the music that we create is what we do it for. When we are performing on the yard, when we're performing in these cells and dorms and on the yard, and like wherever we can do it, it's so we can be seen. And so to take an artist that has a desire to be seen and to put an artist in a place where he has to be a support is a drastic change, but it's a change that's needed, because whenever we do anything great, it's never just because of us, right? Like, it's always in support of something else. So it allowed me an opportunity to like just be okay with not being seen and not really being heard, but to know that I'm a part of something that is gonna like change the conversation and change the narrative for so many other people. And I think like that changed my overall perspective as an artist, but as a man and a productive person in any community that I go into. So I feel really, really good about my evolution through music, like all the way into this film.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So yesterday I was at the women's prison in Chowchilla, the largest one in the world, and I got to spend a day with about 150 women talking about their experiences before they got to prison. And often what was happening was they were kind of repeating things that had been said about them. Oh, I was a monster. I devastated my kids, ruined relationships. I was a terrible person. And they were talking about how they would explain their prior lives and actions when they got to the parole board. They're all serving life sentences, including some life without the possibility of parole, hoping someday they'll get a chance to talk to a parole board. But what I kept hearing was this: they had accepted this narrative about them that others had applied to them. And I guess, the thing that you just talked about, Antwan, was allowing each one to be seen in their individual like complexity, dynamic, all the layers that they hadn't yet had some of them had not had the experience of defining themselves for themselves. And one of the things I picked up on in the film, moving to U-Tone, was you kind of you're a connector, right? You see a lot of people, but not just see on the surface. Like you talked about your connection with Tommy, for example, right? That this is somebody that most of the time you would have nothing to do with. I mean, in some institutions you have nothing to do with by rule, basically. But you were able to see he wasn't that, he wasn't a skinhead. He wasn't, right? All those things that others said about him, that he said about himself even. And so can you talk a little bit about, especially at a place like San Quentin, where a lot of people are mixed, a lot of opportunities to connect with other people, how you were able to see past those things, those labels other people's applied to you, to other folks, and connect with the human being inside?
Okay. First off, I'm not really comfortable with the mic because I'm loud to start with. So normally I don't even use a mic when I do this. So No, the things that we learn and the discipline we pick up from Frank and the volunteers in the 1,000 Mile Club, the things at San Quentin allow you to be open and to be yourself. You don't worry about what the next person is doing, what the next demographic is doing, what the next race is doing. We have some volunteers in there. There's some amazing programs, and the 1,000 Mile Club was the first of which. I got to San Quentin in 2011. Me and Banks got off the bus at the same time, and within 11 days, I was 1,000 Mile Club, just based on helping someone else. A friend of mine, Corey McNeil, get through a race, and Frank basically conned me into getting 20 miles out of me after I hadn't ran forever. I was in, but the thing is, there's so many connections there. They teach you so much discipline. The marathon is based on discipline. And the volunteers, Frank and the volunteers that he brings in around him, they allow you to capitalize and to utilize that discipline and transform it into other stages of your life. Every day I run a marathon still. Right now I can't run. I haven't run in 3 years. My foot hurts. Every day though, I work 2 jobs based on that discipline and the marathon concept. Because every day you get up and run those laps. You do what you can do for the next person. I found what I wanted to do in life right there in San Quentin when I met Frank. It's a life of service. It really is. And I couldn't figure out how to get into service for myself or to my community. Right there in San Quentin, I realized, based on Frank, and I learned how to be of service to myself and to my community. And every day, that's what drives me to this day. Every day I get up and try to be of service to somebody else based on what I've learned in there, based on my past experiences, based on the things I have to pay back to society for the wrongs that I've committed. We have so many people in there in that 1,000 Mile Club who just, it's more of a group actually than it is a team sport or an athletic sport. The 1,000 Mile Club, the people that Frank brings into there, they teach you about life. The Fitzpatricks, the Stevensons, Christine Yoo. I spent 2 years trying not to be in this film. I did.
Wanted more tone.
Christine came around the yard and found me because I just wanted to be in a corner and make sure everything kept running. But the things that keep running are the things that run life. And I realized my contribution was valid too.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And basically, that's what I've learned, and I'm taking that forward out here to my life out here. And every day, I get up with that marathon mindset. I might be hurt. I don't feel like running those damn laps. I don't feel like going to work today. But I get up every day and do it based on what Frank and his team of volunteers taught me. And I learned just watching on the sidelines how to get through my life and to be a part of everybody else's life and not be in the way. So I'm really, really thankful. I'm not even mad about the time that I spent in San Quentin. San Quentin taught me how to get something out of my life. And I thank Frank for that.
Great. Thank you. So I have a lot of questions, but you all probably have some questions too. So I want to, we have a mic we want to float to get to you. If you have questions for anyone on the panel, feel free to raise your hand. And there's one over here. While he's traveling over there, I want to say that, it's been 25 years that I've been dealing with the Department of Corrections and the Parole Board. And for many years, the one shining light I could point to in dealing with, when it came time to get information, was Bill Sessa, who you saw in the film. And I'm so glad that you're here, Bill. Bill's one of the true ones. Really appreciate you, Bill. Thank you. Question right here.
I have a, oh, okay. I'm asking this question. Marion Wickard would not forgive me if I did not ask this question. Tommy has a long-term determinate sentence, which means a lot of the legislation, a lot of the reforms that many people have been working on do not apply.
Right.
What can UnCommon law do for Tommy is the question I have. I do want to make one short observation. I'm in touch with a number of women at CCWF, and unlike the men's prisons, the two main women's prisons have so few programs, so much less in the way of opportunity. Of course, they're in remote places like so many of our men's prisons, but I think it's very telling that your response to the conversations you had with the women there. But I do want to get back to Marion's question.
You lost me at the last part there, but the telling about my response to the experience?
Well, just that the accessibility of programs is so much greater at a place like San Quentin. And there's just not much at all. There are some, but they are few. And the administration doesn't seem to be wanting to do a whole lot more.
That's exactly right.
And I think it's important that people see that.
Thank you for that. And that was one reason I was there, is because everywhere I go, there's such a hunger, a thirst, a need for basic information to demystify the parole process. And this is why I've built up this team, because we need to reach a lot more people and go into institutions so that we can reach more, not just to represent them. We also have developed a policy team in the last couple of years, because the existing laws that require someone to show up at a parole board, jump through certain hoops, answer certain questions that are very, very subjective. The ability for them to really impact the outcome of the hearing is very limited. You can do everything you need to do. We have the best lawyers doing this. Our success rate is 3 times higher than the state average. And I know that at the end of the day, when we go into a hearing, I have no way to know whether my client's going to be granted parole. And I'm the best. Now, and part of the problem is the folks in the institutions don't have access to the support to answer these difficult questions. Why did you commit this crime? Well, there's a whole lot there to unpack. A whole lot of factors contributed to me being in that place at that time and acting that way. And most of the time it involves some childhood or adolescent trauma that most of the people in prison have had no opportunity to talk about. There's not a safe space to open up about that. And so they're sitting with that trauma, the impact of it, for decades. And so when they are asked about their history, all they have is the story somebody else has told about them. They haven't been able to explore it for themselves. There are a lot of exceptions to that, but there aren't enough programs to support people doing that. To your first question about, like, Tommy's case in particular, this is the reason we develop a policy arm, is because this current system was not designed to let people out. So we need to redesign it. We need to write new laws. The problem with Tommy, he mentioned he has a 3-strike sentence. The legislature can only change that by a 2/3 majority. It's not a simple majority, because 3 strikes was a ballot initiative. The voters decided, we want 3 strikes and you're out. So either the voters have to say, we really don't want that, we want something different, or 2/3 of the legislature has to overturn that. We haven't been able to get that kind of political movement yet, but we never give up. We never give up. I have 6 people on my staff who came home from their life sentences, many of whom I sat next to in their parole hearings, sometimes multiple parole hearings. But we don't give up. They didn't give up. We don't give up. We'll keep fighting. Right here, we'll go right here.
I will say, though, that is what we're doing with this film. When we had a screening at San Quentin, we could actually see that it opened up a lot of conversation for the men, that even they said that it helped them to have insight or prepare for their own parole board hearings. Conversations that you saw about Tommy's and his son, that helped create a context for the men to have conversations and be vulnerable about their own children. So we felt it's very important to get it into, facilities, and why we donated the film to CDCR so that it is currently playing in all of the prisons across the state of California. It's reaching 90,000 people locked up in the state. And we recently did have a screening in Sacramento that was presented by the mayor of Sacramento, Darrell Steinberg, for California state legislators and a lot of CDCR staff, including Jeff McCumber, the secretary. We will be having a screening for the Board of Parole Hearings. The head of Board of Parole Hearings thought that every single commissioner in the state of California needs to see this film because they are looking at trying to change policies. So by supporting the film tonight and by telling your friends about it, all of that, we will be continuing to bring the film to prisons across America. We just got back from 3 days in Cleveland where we screened the film for men's prison, women's prison, and for juvenile facilities to help create conversation, spark conversation, maybe spark a running club, but that's what we're doing with the film.
Great. Thank you, thank you. Another question down here.
So I actually have 2 questions. I have like 1,000 for you guys, but one for you and one for you guys. But how are you funded?
Short answer is people like you.
That's so good.
We're a nonprofit. We rely on people who believe in what we're doing, and that folks inside shouldn't be there any longer. That's the short of it. That's where. And for many years, that was all. We would have the main coordinator for many years of our own film screening series is Satch Slavin, who's one of our board members, and Satch could attest that we came out of many film screenings with $30, $40 that we collected from the crowd. And that was able to, we cobbled together a budget for many years. Now with a team like this, we need more than $30 or $40 to support the work, but it's really folks who connect with people inside and recognize, we want a pathway for them to come home, who support the work.
Okay. Can I ask one more?
Please.
So I think another huge issue is what is the support when you get out? I mean, I'm more interested in where did you go back to the city you grew up in? What is going on?
So reentry in itself is a whole nother process. And one of the things that San Quentin do that's unique is it offers not just resources, but proximity changes the dynamic of not just how people outside view incarcerated folks, but how folks inside understand the workings of the world outside. And with so many programs, with so much networking, guys that leave from San Quentin, oftentimes they go home to a support team like Markel was saying, that if it wasn't, for Frank, if it wasn't for the running club, that he needed to rely on them. If he didn't, he would fall back onto his own devices. And so many people do that. I was a part of a bunch of different programs and a bunch of different aspects. So when I came home, I had the support of them. And with that reentry I think it's important for everybody to understand that even though we are free, we are never free from our experience of prison, right? So at every single day, at every single second, there's going to be a sound, a memory, a smell, something that pulls you back into that place where we have been conditioned to believing in the narratives that has been told about us. And like that is a constant fight. So if it isn't an external obstacle as housing, as employment, as getting a bank account, getting a driver's license, right? Like just the step-by-step things that all of you have done so well for so long, men and women who have been incarcerated 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 45, 50 plus years, we have no idea how to do any of that, right? Like, so the actualities of life that is just like as natural as the air that you guys breathe is us adjusting to like, I don't know what's going on. And so we rely on each other for help. A lot of formerly incarcerated people are there at the gate when other formerly incarcerated people get out. And it's like, okay, let's take you to Target. Let's get you some this, get some towels, get some toothpaste, right? Like get the essentials. And then we're going to go here. And then we're going to go do this. We're going to go through these steps. It's like a checklist that formerly incarcerated people have put together because we know these are the obstacles that you will face, right? And outside of those external, then it's like, look, bro, call me. Right. Look, I love you, call me. Reach out. If you need anything, anytime, hit me up. Like, I'll explain it. Like, we'll work through it. Because, these institutions are created to not just warp you physically, but warp you mentally and emotionally. And you'll find yourself in a place where you like, I don't know anybody in here. I don't know what I'm doing, so I'm just not going to say anything. And that is, like, that's the worst thing that a formerly incarcerated person can do, is not use their voice and not use the people that they have on their side. So reentry in itself is like a huge process. It's something that can't be like really just covered in one simple conversation. But what you all can do is, again, understand that everybody in here is a resource to some degree, right? Like you all either know somebody that can put somebody in a position for employment, you know somebody who can give somebody help with transportation, or even if it's just guiding people in the right direction, right? Like we all have people that trust our judgment, and though like that kind of judgment is what we can use to make transition easier for people that's coming home. Because 90% of all incarcerated people will be released. So these are going to be your neighbors. These are going to be, like this reentry does not just involve us. It actually involves all of you. Like you are all stakeholders in the reentry of formerly incarcerated people. And the moment that you realize that is the moment you should start to say, like, how can I get involved and change things? Because when people don't know what to do, they're going to do what the system has conditioned them to think, and they're going to think that they're monsters. They're going to think that they don't have worth or value, and they're going to think that they don't belong to a tribe, so they're going to be willing and they're going to be able to do the things that got them there in the very first place.
Thank you. Thank you. And the thing I'll add is, the conditions you talked about, we created that. We built up, endorse, reinforce all those ideas, those barriers. When we have this knee-jerk reaction and we react to the fear-mongering and we say, yeah, lock them up, whoever it is, this is what we're saying we want to happen. And also, as folks come home, we who employ them, we have a responsibility to do better, to support, to recognize an accommodation doesn't necessarily look like a traditional disability. It may mean the work that I have someone doing for me has a significant emotional traumatic impact that they're willing, able, committed to doing, but I need to know that it has an impact because of where he's been, because of where she's been. And so I need to be responsive to that. And that includes, like, one of the things we have is we have a therapist on staff that supports our team in supporting other folks inside. Tone, anything to add about reentry?
The impact that you just talked about, most of the people on this stage, other than Frank, won't know. The impact you talked about in the question that lady asked and the question that lady asked right there. You guys brought me home. After 26 years, I never saw the Board of Prison Terms. UnCommon Law wrote the motion for my resentencing. Okay, I try to moderate because I don't use these damn things. I really don't. You guys can probably hear me.
Now you got to use the mic, Tone. Sorry,
Okay.
you got to use the mic.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, UnCommon Law brought me home after 26 years, and Keith didn't even know that. The 6 lawyers that he talked about, they wrote a resentencing that each one of you guys can get behind in each one of the 52 counties in California because they're not equally distributed as far as the resources.
That's for sure.
They wrote a resentencing, and they took back a 34 to life sentencing and gave me 13 years after 26 years. Keith didn't know that.
I did have some sense of that, Tone.
Okay. Yeah, wait, he knew somewhere along that. But it was based on the fact that even though the 1,000 Mile Club, most of the letters that went in, the recommendations to resentence me based on what they thought my life had become, all came out of the 1,000 Mile Club. Frank and the Fitzpatricks and all the volunteers and the rest of them, the people that you guys support, they brought me home.
Yeah.
They saw something in me, and they brought me home.
Yeah.
But
Thank
it
you.
takes that.
That's right.
It really takes that. You don't have to wait on from county to county, like the social, if you see something wrong, try to fix it.
Try to fix it.
Try to fix it. The 1,000 Mile Club is just based on the fact Frank comes in there and they come and they run and they get to know us and they see something different in us and they come out and they get all of you people. All of you people to come make a difference. The volunteers that come in there, the coaches that come in there. It's the best social justice program going, the 1,000 Mile Club. And I can say that without animosity, but the simple fact is, I ran, if anybody knows, I ran the San Quentin Warriors basketball team. The Warriors go in there every year. They go in there this Friday. That's supposed to be the biggest sports program in San Quentin. And it is. It's just not the best.
I heard that.
Because there are other things that go into this.
Right.
And they come in there for a reason. Like I said, I didn't learn to run a marathon. I'd already ran a marathon. I learned compassion. I learned that people look at you a different way. They're not jaded. I learned that there are people willing to give you a second, third, fourth, and fifth chance because, like Antwan said, these are the people that are coming home to be your neighbors. And if we don't get it right, what's the point? We're not going to get it right just based on the Department of Corrections and doing the time.
No.
The people that come in there and make a difference in our lives and teach us the things that we didn't know, how to live in a community, how to be part of a community, how to be accountable for self. These are the things that come through that gate every day. And Frank drags a bunch of it through the gate.
Thank you. Yeah, I first encountered the 1,000 Mile Club when I saw Diana Fitzpatrick coming through. We were coming through the gate at the same time. I said, "Where are you going?" And she said, "I'm going here for the running club." And she told me about it. And there's another question up here. Right, you got something quick, Bill?
Well, I actually have a question to ask. I'm asking for a friend.
Asking for a friend. Okay. Go for it.
Okay.
You need a mic or no? Belt it out.
All right, I'll build it out. My friend wants to know, what are some of the questions every voter should be asking their DA in their counties before they vote for them?
Wow. Either you have any ideas about this?
I got one.
What you got?
Are you truly going into every one of these Board of Prison Terms hearings with the people that you've given life sentences to in long-term incarceration? When it's time for a review or their Board of Prison Terms hearing, Are you really going into this with an open mind? Are you really going into this with an eye towards, okay, maybe they've changed their life, as opposed to just going to give them some more time?
Yeah, I would add a related question. Just kind of, do you believe in people's capacity for change?
If not, you should have just gave them life without to start with.
If not, you shouldn't be in office. Anybody other ideas, folks?
Will there be prosecutorial oversight?
That's a good question. Will there be prosecutorial oversight? Will you re-sentence people?
Okay, you know what? Prosecutorial oversight, yeah, that comes from you guys. If they don't do what you guys want them to do, then vote them out of office.
Get them out. That's right.
It comes from out there.
No, that's right. That's right. I want to keep moving because we had a question that's been waiting for a while.
Thank you so much for making this evening happen. And Christine, my question is for you. You came up with an idea after hearing about Frank's program, and you ran with it, and you were fierce and tenacious. I worked in San Quentin for over 8.5 years doing the Shakespeare program. And I know firsthand how hard it is to get things to happen. We would have show day happen, and then the whole prison would shut down. And we wait weeks. And you made this film look so smooth and easy. I know you went through some hard times. And I just want to know what
Sarah
it
can talk about that too.
Yes. Having a women's team creating that, like producers, and you're the director. I want to know if there's anything that you can share what it was like to be a woman doing that.
Well, I mean, strangely, as an Asian American female filmmaker, I also knew that if I didn't do something for myself, you know, my true talents might not ever be seen. And, you know, the odd thing is that stepping into that prison and having the opportunity to speak and interview these men, I felt more seen by these men inside than I have ever had in any kind of work situation. I think that they recognized my true heart and what my intentions were, and respected the way that I was going about doing it. So it, you know, encouraged me to you know, stick with it, and inspired me to, you know, keep on. So I never felt one bit of threat, or I always felt very strangely, oddly comfortable. Not necessarily the first time I went into the cell block, okay, but I did feel very strangely, oddly comfortable talking to you know, the men inside, and drawing and finding their stories, and coming to mutual trust and understanding.
Great, thank you. Another question. There's another one back there, and then we'll go here. While he's traveling back there, I'm told that UnCommon Law has an Instagram account, and if you want to follow us, it's UnCommon Lawyer. That's who we are.
And we are SQ Marathon. So.
Go ahead.
I am so grateful to be in your company. So grateful. I spent some time working at San Quentin doing Toastmasters. Yeah, it was fun. They had a really great time. It was very funny. I was single at the time, and one of the inmates, one of the lifers, said to me, "Why are you single? I got a lot of friends in here. You can meet all the people here. You're going to like it." The comment that I want to make, that I'd like to hear about, I work with veterans. There are a lot of prisons in the world in different forms, ones we know as San Quentin and other prisons. But these men and women came home from Vietnam and other places. There was their own prison because they were not able to re-enter back into the world. I want to just make the comment that this is one form of prison that is very, very significant that we change. We also need to change what has happened, that these men and women went to, quote unquote, fight for our country. They didn't even know what they were going to do. They just went because they were 18. What do they know? They came home, and they're still imprisoned. When you see someone on the street corner that's homeless, sign up, I need money, I'm a veteran. please don't judge them. They have their own wounds. We may not see them, but their wounds are very deep. Once you're a veteran, you're never a civilian again, is what I've been told. Thank you for letting me just say that out loud. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment. One of my former clients is a guy named Ron Self. People know. He started an organization called Veterans Healing Veterans while incarcerated, while serving a life sentence, and has talked to many veterans out of suicide and other self-harm, recognizing that serious need for folks inside, and runs a program to this day. There was another question over here. Oh, here, right here, yeah.
First, just want to say thank you. I used to volunteer inside and honestly kind of stopped because I got discouraged, not by the people inside, but just by the system. So thank you for the film because it's really inspired me to do that again. But my question is, you guys are the best people to ask this to, and it's maybe not the most politically correct thing to ask, but I know you'll have a good answer. I live in Oakland. There's a lot of crime right now, and basically people are saying, you know, the liberal policies don't work. It doesn't work. They don't care if I tell them a story of someone I know. They just say it doesn't work. So what can I tell them, or what conversations can I have with my colleagues to help move them to see? We all know that these policies can work if they're done the right way, and we see the humans behind them, but they're just seeing the crime stats go up, and I just feel like I can't convince them. So what kinds of things could we say?
I know, so whenever we think about like roses, right? Like how beautiful roses are. Like what we're actually admiring is everything that went into helping that rose grow. You don't look at a rose that didn't grow and be like, oh, so you got to get rid of all of these kind of roses. Get rid of all the red roses. It don't work like that, right? What we have to do is we have to change the environment. See, crime happens when there is a desperation, or when there is a thought or a belief of desperation. It might not be immediate, but the belief of desperation will cause people to do irrational things. So when we talk about crime in very specific areas, like we are looking at a flower pot that isn't being nurtured. Nothing can grow, nothing can or will grow if it's like, oh, see, we just got to just get rid of this whole pot, right? Like we don't praise the roses that grew because of just how great it is. Like, no, those roses grew because it was nurtured, because it was watered, it got enough sunlight. It, like, there was enough attention on it so it can be as beautiful as it possibly can. And we have to think about that when we think about these specific communities, right? Like San Quentin is the flower pot. San Quentin is an institution. Don't get it twisted. This prison, I mean, this film makes it look nice, but it's a prison. It is a prison. Like there is a few people that was in the right place at the right time that allowed this to happen. But there are so many people that wanted to, and if they can, will shut all of that down. Yeah. That is an institution. It's the pot itself. Now, everything that's in it, the soil, that's Frank, that's Christine, that's all of you, that's everything that goes into the pot that makes something beautiful grow. And that doesn't just apply to San Quentin. That applies to Oakland. That applies to San Francisco. That applies to Marin City. That applies to Vallejo. That applies to everywhere, as long as there are people that are willing to not just plant seeds, but to make sure that they're being nurtured, that they're getting enough water, that they're getting enough resources, enough sunlight, and doing it in such a way that over time the conditions change. Then you won't have to do as much work. See, right now we have to look at like how bad everything is, and it makes you want to just put your hands off of it. But our hands being off of it is what got us in this position in the very first place. So when people won't change, put your hands on it. That's what I would say.
Thank you. Thank you. And you know, the work that we do in institutions and with people serving life sentences, we help them understand how the things that happened to them when they were a kid, weren't their fault, and they don't mean that they were a bad person. They don't mean they're unlovable, etc. And most of them, when they get that realization, said, I wish somebody told me that when I was 5. I wish somebody was there when I was 8. or 10. So my suggestion is we need those interventions in schools. We need those interventions, you know, in the community, not in prison. And we do have to wrap up here. We'll take one more question. There's the hand right there. I'm also reminded I have to make sure for those who do want to support our work, you can go to uncommonlaw.org, uncommonlaw.org to support us. We also have an event coming up where we welcome home folks who have come back home from life sentences. It's on October 21st in Oakland. It's called Uncommon Heroes. We also recognize some folks who've done some really important things. Before I go to this last question, it's important for me personally to recognize one of my own personal heroes. Claude Marks is in the house and has done some amazing, amazing work on behalf of people in prison. Where's the question? Right there. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you all so much. I won't take a lot of time to go. First of all, I'm on your newsletter, so thank you. I'll make my way there in October. I appreciate it.
Great, thank you.
Two questions. One, how many of the prisons in California are private prisons so that we know we keep people in prison so that we can keep paying these private companies in the contracts? That's
None
my
of
first
them.
question.
None.
None in California.
None right now.
That's nice to hear. Thank you. My second question is, Christine, I heard you mention, of course, there's hundreds of hours of film, and I'm just wondering if there could be some process whereby so many more people and their stories can be present to the world, even if it's, I've been down at USC, you know, a project for a USC film school, however it happens, right? Just thinking broader and expanded so that some of that, a lot more of that you pull together and a lot more of the people there can be seen and can be heard and can be made real for people in connection. Thank you.
Well, that would be the dream, you know. We've got a ton of footage. We love creating these stories. So yes, we are always open to donations and support, sanquentinmarathon.com. And yeah, we hope to continue to tell these stories.
Thank you. So thank you for this wonderful film, for all of you, all your work. Thank you for being here. We'll see you all next time.